Hello, welcome to today's video, which is a shorter video about cutting your word count. I do have a longer video demonstrating how you revise and cut your word count with an example essay. For this video, it's going to be a series of tips that you can use to cut your word count down without sacrificing the quality of your essay. So without further ado, first, make sure that when you write your essay, especially for a transfer essay, you are writing about one thing. If you're writing about a story, make it one story. If it's an obstacle you've overcome, focus on one obstacle. Many students will give a series of obstacles that they've had to overcome or a series of challenges. And that might be useful when you're doing your brainstorming, but when you're turning this essay in, when you're submitting it, then you need to focus on one story. Think about it like a film, like a movie, where there's a clear beginning and a clear end. I say think about it that way because movies start and end just in the right place. They focus on that single story. There might be some little subplots that link in, but mostly it's a single story. They don't start with too much earlier information or too much ending information. The next thing to focus on to reduce your word count are vague sentences. Vague sentences are sentences that don't really provide any concrete details. These are sentences that anyone could say or that you could say about any college. For example, I am a hard worker is a vague sentence because hard worker means different things to different people. For some people, that simply means studying hard. For others, it means showing up to work on time. If you're not telling us what that means, it's a meaningless sentence, so cut it out. Similar when you're talking about the school itself, saying UMD is a great school, you can say that about any school. Every school is a great school. It's not working very hard for you to say that. And every sentence, every word in this essay needs to work hard for you. Also, any sentence that refers to people in general or life in general should really be cut. For example, the sentence, everyone wants to be successful, is meaningless in this context because, first of all, it's not true. There's very little that is true for everyone, everywhere. And this isn't an essay about everyone. It's an essay about you and how you will be a good fit for this particular school. So any sentence that isn't meeting that requirement should probably be cut. Quotes. Don't quote other people in your transfer essay. These are essays where you are showing what you can say. You're showing your skills as a writer, your voice. And if you quote other people, that's taking up real estate on the page that is not working for you. Lots of people know these famous quotes anyway. Even if it connects to you and to your message, it's better to just give us more of you and your message. So don't quote people. Watch out also for filler phrases. Filler phrases are just what they sound like. They fill up space and that's it. Things like, it can be said that. Rarely does that phrase help anyone. Cut it out. Similarly, we can say that. Cut that out and simply give us the sentence that's going to come afterwards. Another word that I consider to be filler or that is often filler is the word nowadays. Nowadays does mean something, but it's rare that I see it used in a way that it actually helps and adds meaning to an essay. Frequently, in fact, in my personal experience, almost always, if you remove nowadays, the sentence means the same thing. And students often use nowadays in ways that are not actually accurate. For example, I've heard someone say, well, nowadays, people don't need to get married to have kids, which has been true for literally all of human history. So nowadays is the opposite of the truth there. So don't use nowadays. The next thing to watch out for is repetition. Of course, many students know to watch out for repetition, but they also know that sometimes repetition is ideal. So repeating the name of the school, for example, might be ideal because you want to show that you are interested in the school, that you've done research on the school, but make sure you're doing that in a meaningful way. If you've told us that you want to attend this school, you do not need to say it more than once. And in fact, if you're applying to the school in the first place, we know you want to attend, so you actually don't need to say it at all. But if you've said something once, if you've said an idea once, you do not need to repeat it. Also, keep an eye on repeated words that don't need to be repeated or that can be reduced into pronouns. If you're talking about a professor, Professor John Smith, you can use the pronoun he if that's appropriate for Professor John Smith. Also, thinking about reference pronouns, this and that can often be used to replace longer strings of words that you might be repeating. Next up are modifiers. Now, modifiers, of course, modify nouns and verbs. Modifiers fall into the categories of adjectives and adverbs most of the time. Also, relative clauses can fall under the category of modifiers. Starting with adverbs, many writing guides will tell you to never use adverbs. I don't like the word never. I don't think that never is really appropriate because some adverbs do strengthen a sentence, but most of them do not. So look for any of those ly adverbs and ask yourself, can this be removed? Will the meaning stay the same? Here's an example. I firmly believe. Firmly is the adverb in that phrase, and you don't need it. I believe tells us everything that we need to know. Other adverbs to watch out for that students use very frequently, just, simply, only, very, really. Those words very often can be cut without significantly altering the meaning of the sentence that they're in. Similarly, look out for your adjectives, like my strong passion for learning. Passion means that it is strong. We don't use passion for weak things. So the word strong really isn't working for you there. It can be removed, and you can simply say, my passion for learning. Relative clauses, also called adjective clauses, sometimes help us out and sometimes don't. So you should look for those and ask yourself, is this actually giving new and useful information or not? Here's an example where it is not giving us useful information. I was given extra help by Professor Rao, who loves to help students succeed. The relative clause there, who loves to help students succeed, does not help us any. First of all, this is an essay about me. It's not about Professor Rao. So we don't need to know that much information about that professor. But also, Professor Rao is giving me extra help, so I know that that is a person who loves to help students succeed. It's not necessary information there. Next are prepositional phrases. Some prepositional phrases are very useful, and some of them are not. You'll notice this in many of the tips that I'm giving you today. You do need to think about it. Prepositions include words like in, on, of, from, with, between. In some cases, you can simply remove those prepositional phrases if they're not helping you out or if they are even redundant. For example, strong communication skills with other people. With other people should be removed there because communication almost always means with other people. So that's a little redundant. Similarly, a smartphone with internet access is redundant because smartphones all have internet access. That's part of the definition of a smartphone. So you would cut those prepositional phrases out. In many cases, though, you can take a prepositional phrase and say, actually, this is useful information, but I want to have fewer words. For example, a small town in Virginia. This is an example from the essay I used in my longer video. A small town in Virginia can become a small Virginia town. It's one less word, but when you're really cutting down, every word counts. Also, the capital of Nigeria can become Nigeria's capital. The meaning in those is basically the same. If you write something like, I wrote a paper about history, you can change that to, I wrote a history paper. The meaning there is a little bit different depending on what you want to say. So you will need to think about, is this a paper about a historical topic, or am I writing about the history field? If you're writing about the history field, then you will say, I wrote a paper about history. If you're writing a historical paper about, let's say, ancient Rome, then you can say, I wrote a history paper. Finally, if you have a phrase like education to become a doctor, that is 5 words, and you can use 2 words, medical school, and it means basically the same thing. Finally, our last tip, avoid definitions in your essay if at all possible. There are 2 reasons that students might give definitions. One of them is they are writing a phrase or a word that isn't usually found in English. Let's say it's a word in French or a phrase in French. If you are also providing us with enough context that we can make a reasonable guess what that means, or maybe we don't need to know exactly what it means, we just need to have a general idea, you don't have to give us a definition. If you are defining a concept or an object that you think people will not know, then yes, a definition might help. But think about your audience here. Let's say that you're applying for a medical program. Let's say it's a nursing program. Most of the people who are reading those essays will know basic medical terms. They will know the parts of the body. They will know basic medical instruments. So you don't need to explain what a catheter is. For example, you can simply say a catheter and move on without giving a definition or describing what that is. In a similar case to that, if you're saying a catheter, if the context is clear, you don't need to tell us what kind of catheter it is either. Give us only the information that we need to know and information that enhances the quality of your essay. So if it adds useful and interesting details, please add that information. There's a reason we're cutting this word count down so much, and that is so that you can use that space to really paint a beautiful picture of who you are, what you've done, and what you're bringing to the table in this application. I hope those tips were helpful. If you think of any others, or if you have any questions or comments for me, please leave them in the comments section below, and best of luck with your application.